It's Las Vegas, baby! And yes, I have actually been once, and whilst I have no interest in returning, I do have interest in this, about what kind of liveries we can expect, and Williams has just started things off with an absolute banger. Seriously, if Williams could nail their operations department as much as their design department, they'd be winning titles left, right and centre. Because one of title sponsor Atlassian's products is being touted on the FW47, with this black and spectrum design, and oh my goodness. And yes, whilst it does remind me of the 2022 Williams when it went on a crash diet and left me with crippling depression, this is not the case here. The black that we see is mostly paint. And the thing that really sets me off is that spectral design as the trim down the nose. And then the streaks on the airbox, it just screams out something which looks even better to me than their tribute to the 2002 design. I'm a sucker for these kind of spectral colours, and I just think under the lights this is going to look wonderful. It's like the evil twin to that Austin livery, and for such a simple tweak to the design, it just lands right, you know? Especially when you couple it with the news that from next year, teams will have to make their cars mostly coloured or stickered as per the law. And no, I don't mean per the law as in me. I am talking about from the FIA. Teams will have to have at least 55% of the car painted or stickered, and the rest of it can be carbon fibre, but it can no longer be dominated, which is only good news for us in that we can actually recognise the darn things. The A524 of last year, the Alpine, that's a thing of the past. It will be technically illegal. Much like how the decline of Alpine this year could be described as illegal. It's been an absolute crime to watch that descent. And besides, I don't want the equivalent of beige mom, that being carbon fibre, infiltrating the sport which I really love for its really cool looking liveries, or historic looking liveries. And so far, Williams is the only one that has been teasing livery. I've seen some drivers showcasing their helmet designs, Oscar's having one inspired by his own RC cars from back in the day, and V-Carb has teased something, so do expect more to come out as the week progresses. And even if you don't like it, you got to admit, this Williams design is a lot smoother than their design from 2023. Apt, yeah, but tacky. Kind of like Vegas when you think about it. Oh yeah, I meant to talk about the Audi concept car from last week, but I got distracted by other things, so I shall do so briefly now, because I am really excited. We got a mostly silver car with red accents and a rather straight line downward on the airbox and the engine cover. I don't think this is the design we will get next year, but more like a geometric representation of what colours we could see on the car. Bare and shiny carbon fibre, but that being not the main feature, with neon red and matte silver. Nice combination, very historic too. However, it may not reach as high as the reach it managed to get online, with many pundits within the team saying that they're not expecting to be winning world championships by 2030, which, as you may be aware, is the next regulation cycle, not this one. So you're thinking, oh, well, they're just writing off this one then, that's that then, don't be excited. Well, as I've told you many times on this channel, do not discount Spinella. Because this edict has come from Audi head office that they are being quite realistic with their expectations, which really pleases the likes of their team principal, Jonathan Wheatley. Them seeing this, Audi and he, as a journey with momentum to be garnered now that Audi is bringing its full backing. And the entire operation will have 3 hubs to work from, as well as financial uplift from the expanded cost cap. But going back to Binotto, the things that he has been saying gives me some really excited vibes, and why I am touting Audi to be my second team next year. Because he knows, Mattia, all too well about raising expectations far too early, because hey, he was a Ferrari team principal, which he didn't really ask to be, but he got lumped with the job. And I think he did a reasonable job, all things considering, turning things around from 2020. So the reason why I am actually quite stoked is what Matthias said right here, which I shall share with you for your consideration. Ahem. It's looking great as a car. I am enjoying the new regulations. I'm enjoying the challenge from an engineering point of view. The entire team at Hinwil and Neuburg are excited. That's Audi's campus, by the way. It'll be very special for us in a few weeks' time when we fire up the car, and then later on we will hit the track very soon. The challenge is big. The power unit is a complex and difficult matter. There'll be much we need to learn, but we are all excited. On the dyno, we are running through reliability at the moment, ensuring it'll be alright for the start of the season. There are some tense moments in Neuburg, but that is the challenge. Now, I keep telling you this, folks, this is a very powerful thing for Mattia to say, and it's also that little bit different. It actually gives us a read as to where Audi is right now. And where they are right now is that maybe they got their power down, because we've heard rumours in recent times that their horsepower output is not that different to what Mercedes is putting out. It's like 20 horsepower difference. And if you're thinking, oh, well, that's that then, remember, the engine freeze will be no more after Abu Dhabi. You can develop mid-season. Audi could make up the difference within a couple of years, maybe even sooner. And to me, Mattia looks like he's like a proud father saying, this is my child, everyone. Look how great he is. Or she, or they. What also is powerful is that part where Kel Surprise, he says he enjoys the new rules and that the team is excited to fire up the car and run it soon. Of course he would say that. He's an engineering wizard. He's a proper motor geek, a backroom boy. One who has perhaps witnessed major milestones being achieved within the Audi group when he came on board last year, and now maybe it's just a case of making the car less likely to explode, which is ideal if they want to try and score points. And the detail about the dyno work and the tense moments in Neuberg, they're also very different from the usual, we'll see where we are quote that we usually get. And given the time he had at Ferrari where he was actually quite bullish and made good use of the regulations, to come out as this bullish right now instead of keeping things deliberately vague, as well as him actually being quite realistic and pragmatic at the same time, really gives me the impression that things are going quite well with that group. Because again, he knows exactly how risky it can be to be this bullish before the car's even turned a wheel in anger. So he's willing to be this public about it. I'm really, really pleased, as should be any fan of Audi. And this is such a huge, refreshing change of pace after all the years of speculation, us getting our spanners out thinking, is Audi actually going to turn up in 2026? Are they really that committed? Because we've had just cause to be that speculative, given all of the stuff regarding potential route changes, Mohammed bin Sulayem saying V10s and V8s, and Audi going like, that's not what we signed up for, guys. Then, of course, all the power struggles we had regarding Andreas Seidel, Oliver Hoffman, with all the stuff going on at head office. It's all been uncertain the last few years, but ever since Mattia stepped in, it's been relatively calm. And now, it's been realised. It's actually there. We have a silver Audi. Fantastic. Because this looks like a proper works effort now, that maybe next year they could be a legit competitor, not pinning the bottom of the order. I'm not expecting them to win titles for many years, but it should certainly be not near the back or seconds off the pace. Let Mattia cook, folks. So if you would like me to make a video about Audi instead of just tacking this on as a bit of news, then maybe drop a like on the video, and then maybe we'll figure something out. But now I'd like to step away from Las Vegas to talk to you about not a sponsor, but something that Pirelli just dropped regarding the next Grand Prix, the Qatar Grand Prix. And yes, it's to do with tyres, and I'm not too sure whether this is good news for us because it means that one-stoppers will not be a thing for definite. Yep, tyre stints are back after 2023, where teams and drivers could not make their tyres last more than 17 or 18 laps in case they went bang, no matter the compound. This time, we've got a similar mandate, albeit 25 laps this time. And with the race being 57 laps, this means that we are guaranteed to have a two-stop race. But this is not a repeat after what we got from 2023. This is the stuff that Pirelli learned from everything that happened last year, where teams and drivers realised that they had a little bit more excess front wear than they would have liked, as well as lateral wear. So this is more of a precautionary thing, and it might save Pirelli some face, because they have really been through the mills this year, especially with their special C6 tyre that we all expected to be wheeled out for Las Vegas, because, well, it's really, really ruddy cold out there. We're not going to be seeing that again. And this is also a case of saying something, because Pirelli for Qatar are bringing out the C1 tyre as the hardest. They're bringing the hardest tyres out. I'm surprised they didn't bring out the C0. It does exist, and we've not really seen it before, and if they're really worried about tyre management and longevity and survival, then bring out the hardest tyres you can get. Also, Pirelli will tell the teams how many laps left each set will have before having to be replaced, so that might allow some variety if teams choose to use a scrubbed set to maybe get a slight undercut, avoiding chaos in the pits as well. And yeah, again, they're bringing the C1, so no one really likes that tyre, but no more of that today. I just thought I'd let you know. But okay, let's get on to the track itself. Personally, I quite like it. I remember all the memes about an upside-down spider pig. Yeah, we all did mock it, and I did mock it too for the fact that many of the corners were being named after local stores, like Top Golf. Remember that? How we all had a little bit of a yuck moment? It's kind of grown on me. It's got some character. And I think what really helps is that the 2 times we have been so far, I'm not talking about Caesar's Palace, that was absolutely dreadful. Absolutely a mismatch for what we could expect. But it's because of the fact that the last 2 races, we had some really interesting racing. Leclerc and Perez fighting on the final lap the first time out, Max Verstappen securing his 4th world title, George dominating in a car which was incredibly patchy. It's had its moments. It's got a little bit of charm to it. F1 is learning through the school of hard knocks about what it's like to actually promote a race. Because that is important to remember. This is their backyard. They spent hundreds of millions on this track. They own it. They operate it and market it. So that would explain why you're seeing way more stuff and promotion about it and it getting on your nerves. It's their bottom line depending on this track being good, Liberty Media's. But realistically, I think it's something that they are going to be learning even more struggles with because there are still plenty of tickets to be available. If this continues and Las Vegas's hotels don't get the money back, then there might not be the justification or more resistance from the local populace for this to even happen. It might not survive the 10-year contract. If you think about it, the original 3-year grace period is almost up, so you never know. But one thing we do know is the characteristics of the Las Vegas Strip Straight. It being right up there with Baku as being one of the longest straights on the circuit and having a notoriously bumpy one at that. And did you know it's not designed by Herman Tilke, it's designed by his son Karsten. He's actually taken up the mantle, and he was actually the one mainly responsible for the Corniche circuit in Jeddah, one that has actually become a real favourite in the video games especially. It's a shame that it's actually going to be going, and that we're going to be getting that Mario Kart-like one in Kajia, because if we do go there, I want people to be bringing Bluetooth speakers and just going, ba 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 ba. But okay, let's get on to the main topic of discussion, and it's to do with the weather. No, rain is not really expected, and for a brief period, they were expecting snow to be falling around Las Vegas at night time, because remember, we are doing this at night time. But alas, the snow will not be dropping, and we'll be expecting temperatures around like 10, 11, 12, so it would explain why Pirelli's gone soft for this venue, but it really again did surprise me that they weren't bringing the C6 tyres, but when you look at all of the criticism they got from Max Verstappen that it might be best to leave it home, it seems like the tyre manufacturer has given up on this set and might try again next year. So now let's discuss who could be outside the top 5 and make up the places. I'd expect Hamilton to be a podium threat should Q3 go well for him, but if not, he'll be mainly the leading man who might get a 6th place. It depends on whether Ferrari repeats the habit of fading slightly on tyre life. Antonelli should be a decent shout for a top 5 if things go really well, but I don't want to be going into the hype that everyone was having after Brazil. Him getting a P2, fighting off Max Verstappen, again, being the stronger of the 2 Mercedes drivers. It would be reasonable for me to go like, yeah, Kimmy's return, baby! But I've not seen enough experience from him around street circuits, because this is one of those to make me think, yeah, he's destined for another podium or a top 5 finish. I think somewhere around like 7th is perfectly reasonable. It's a case of him just trying to learn and finish off the season on a bit of a high. And yes, maybe the temptation of trying to beat Hamilton in the standings is there. And then for Yuki Tsunoda, he has to score here. He really has to. Especially since the other day, I saw a GP blog article which effectively blamed Yuki for why Max is nearly out of the World Championship because of setup direction. It seems like the media wants Tsunoda to disappear. But surely the chance of points aren't going to go up in smoke either. Surely he's going to come away with a few. But then you've got also the Williams to consider. Williams' low drag car and surprise result in qualifying for the first time out, it plus Sainz's racecraft could make he and Albon very likely candidates to maybe get into the top 10 quite handsomely, a double points finish. And if the safety car comes out, they might actually snatch a top 5 finish, provided they have a plan, which they did not the first time out, that they completely squandered that opportunity. They scored nothing. And Logan Sargent's chances of capitalising on that P7 result in qualifying went up in smoke. That could have been a career-saving moment for Logan, but alas, we didn't get that. And considering that it seems like Williams have not learnt a thing, operationally speaking, both Carlos and Alex still complaining over the radio about what their strategy is like, I'm not really sure whether or not they can actually score, or that if they do, it might be at best 1 car in 10th. The car, I think, is capable. The pit wall, I'm not sure. But okay, you're probably wondering who I think is going to be the top 5 drivers for this particular event, so look no further, here they are. In 5th place, I'm gonna have to put my boy, Oscar Piastri. Wait, Law? Wait, hang on, why are you doing this? Look, I would like to be buying into the hype that my boy could win the next 3 races, hook, line and sinker, but I cannot because of McLaren's form around this track. 5th place, I think, is kinda generous. It may seem harsh to you, but given what's happened in this season so far and the characteristics of Vegas and McLaren hoping and praying for something better that they might have cracked it 3rd time the charm, neither he or Lando have been that solid around here, either through crashes or middling performance. And his recent run of errors have really cost him dozens of points, and McLaren's public concern about this track means the team will be very keen to avoid another high-risk weekend. I do think that McLaren will just want to play it safe and come up with something that is relatively stable. Both cars in Q3, both in the top 5, they don't have to chase the win. Let George and Max contest for that, and maybe Charles, thank you very much. And one of Piastri's strengths is being able to commit early when it comes to turning and being relatively smooth. But the trouble with that is that the conditions last year meant that the McLaren tyres were prone to graining, especially the softer compounds, and you need to activate those tyres, especially since the air temperature is going to be so low. My guess is that he will be quite close to Norris in qualifying, maybe just 1 or 2 places behind, but I really don't expect him to be making much ground and instead just wishing to try and consolidate where he is. And if he is quite a few places down and a couple of places behind Norris, then the fact that dirty air is a thing could be another thing that goes against him, because that is a bit of a weakness of Piastri in terms of trying to do many overtakes. Yeah, there have been a couple of instances this year where he has been able to do the deed, like around Imola, but for the most part, he kind of gets stuck behind people. I think he could be quite quick on the hard tyre if they decide to go for a one-stopper in medium and then hard and then going long and then just hoping for the best, but it really depends on how many places he can make, and trying to get into the top 4, it could easily mean that 5th is the best that he can do. And it all rests on him getting a really strong start here, because you really got to look to Austin and Mexico, and those were low grip tracks, and if McLaren have not solved this problem, this could mean he could drop a few places. Mexico, he fell as low as 11th. If he doesn't qualify well here, then he could drop out of the points here and have it all to do in the race itself. So I think this is going to be a case of damage limitation and just trying to make the championship fight surviving to Qatar, where hopefully things will be a little bit more bountiful for him, since he does like that circuit in Losail. Then in 4th place, I got Charles Leclerc. And Leclerc himself admits that this is a track he actually has a soft spot for. He quite likes it, even though his first impressions were not all that great. And Ferrari last year were really impressive. At times, they looked on par with Mercedes, and they weren't too far behind them, about 10 to 15 seconds or so. They were also quite rapid at the beginning of their stints with the tyres, but as is all too common, and is really the case this year, they do fall off rather hard. They can activate the tyres, which is really good in cold conditions, but if they go too hard, then it might mean that it could fall off later on, and then they drop all the places that they were able to either hold on to or make up. So they could make the most of that in qualifying and get on the first couple of rows, which would be really handy in trying to avoid all of the traffic, and therefore preserve their tyres that little bit more. But it'll all be a case of setup and trying to make sure that tyre management is the watchword. I don't think Leclerc, unless he really gets lucky in qualifying, will be going for the win. He'll be trying for yet another podium to bring a smile to Ferrari's face and get them at least a little bit closer to maybe crawling back some dignity and getting 3rd in the Constructors. And I think a realistic scenario is that Leclerc starts on the mediums or something and makes the most of the fact that the McLarens will probably be a little bit cautious at the start, trying to preserve their tyres. But once things get harder on the hard tyres, then I think Ferrari might fall off. It'll all be resting on what they do in the first half of the race. A safety car could throw Charles a bone maybe. He could maybe preserve a set of softs to go at the end of the race when the track's more rubbed in. And as Max showed us in Brazil, just going for a last gasp soft stint is not a guarantee for you to get what you want. So it's a bit of a gamble. But quite frankly, anything is better than what happened in Brazil for Charles. Then in 3rd place, the bottom rung of the podium, I am pegging Lando Norris. So finishing a couple of places ahead of Piastri, and therefore banking just those few more points, an extra 5 to make his life a little bit more cushy. And that is something you need to consider. Lando Norris is in a good place right now. He's got a crumb of comfort with 3 races and a sprint to go. 24 points is not too shabby, which means that strategically he can play a bit safe, especially considering that his teammate is on the back foot at the moment, and his time around Vegas was equally not as fruitful as he. Because Lando, you got to remember, he did crash out in the first race. and quite severely too. The car hated the low downforce trim. The mini DRS innovation of Baku had already been nerfed by then, and it proved to be little use anyway. They struggled badly with tyre warm-up, vastly below their ideal conditions in terms of temperatures, and the severe graining hurt them the most amongst the front runners. Stella are admitting that they were basically throwing everything they could at the MCL38, hoping that something would stick, but it ultimately didn't. Think tweaks to setup, changes to tyre plans, it just made things worse, and that they were nowhere near anyone, finishing 40 seconds behind Russell in the case of Lando. And I think the thing that will stand him in good stead, Lando, is that he is kinder to his tyres than Piastri in terms of trying to keep them out a little bit longer. We've heard many times over the radio Oscar lamenting his tyres or just going, "Oh, it's not looking good, mate." Whereas Lando seems to be a little bit more fortuitous if he has to. That might stand him in good stead here. But at the same time, if McLaren folks are expecting him to win this Grand Prix after winning the last two, then I don't think it's going to be a hat trick. It'll be a case of just at least salvaging something in the top 5. If they can get a podium, 3rd place, that will be akin to a win. Quite frankly, Lando's in a position like he doesn't have to be fighting for wins right now. He just has to finish ahead of Piastri, don't let Max get too close to him, and he's just sitting pretty. So therefore, I think a 3rd place is perfectly reasonable. In 2nd place, I have got George Russell. But it's going to be close though. I'm not thinking it's going to be a cakewalk for the other person who I'm pegging for first, but it's going to be something that could go either way. Make no mistake, he'll be right up there this year, considering that Mercedes were monsters here last year, where they had absolutely no clue as to why they were so good. They had a dominant 1-2 around this cool track. And the W16 has generally been strong on low drag setups with good ride quality, and he's one of the best also, George, at building up tyre temperature as well as getting off the line, especially around a track which has been known to grain the softer tyres given the conditions, so George could stand in good stead to at least be competing for pole and competing for the win. But whether or not he can actually get back-to-back victories is still up in the air at the moment, because we've got a very injured Max who's managed to soar from the pit lane to 3rd last time out after a setup malady. I don't think that team will be wanting to make the same mistake again. If he qualifies on the front row, George, and Max does get ahead, he'll be wanting to remain relatively close to Verstappen, but not too close to be susceptible to the rigours of dirty air. So I'd say between 2 to 3 seconds, and then just observe what happens from there, preserving his own tyres to maybe go for a cheeky overcut and then thrash the likes of the C3 hard tyres, because remember, the Mercedes really likes the C3s. The problem that might befall them is that they have admitted that the car is a little bit more sensitive than last year. Their setup window is a little bit narrower, so they really have to get it right in practice. But I am really excited to see what happens between these two, that we actually get another battle, that it's not a case of Singapore where we thought we were going to get it, but then George was like 8-9 seconds down the road, Max really having to cling on to dear life with his soft tyres. If they both start with the mediums, oh boy, oh, this is going to be good. But yeah, I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore. Max Verstappen, I think, is going to win this Grand Prix, but it is going to be very close. And the reason why I think that is because they will have learned a lot from what happened around Brazil with their mistake in qualifying, trying to hone setup. They might bring a couple of parts to Las Vegas for the final push with this triple header, because remember, it's going to be a triple header, so strap yourselves in, people. The team will do everything in their power to grant Verstappen another shot at keeping his hopes alive this year. That can happen should he finish behind Lando here, that everything gets snuffed out. He has to finish ahead of Lando. And I would lean toward Verstappen, as the performance of this year's car when on song has hinted that the team has finally found a broader setup window. How much broader? I don't really know, but it certainly seems a little bit more flexible than it was at the start of the year, where it was just like, it was on a knife edge. And it seems to work well, especially on low downforce track where grip really matters, so I really expect Max will go ham and go for a skinny front wing and rear wing. And the track is really something where braking stability is important here, and with Verstappen's characteristics and their setup choices and the experience and the results it actually provided him, this could easily translate well here. This seems like almost something akin to Monza in a way, only that much colder. And it's also going to be really critical because there are drizzles expected on Thursday before practice, and then you've already got the fact it's a street circuit. Oh yeah, in FP1, I would not be surprised seeing cars spinning left, right, up, down, wherever. But yeah, I expect, like I said with George, for him to start off on the C4 medium tyres and then just hang in there as best as he can, or if he can get a good start, dictate the pace as he so often does and has seen many successes over the years, and then go from there. Then go on to the harder tyre, and then depending on what happens with the safety car, change to the softs near the end, and then go from there. That being said, with the safety car, it would compress the field, and it would mean that the advantage that Verstappen and Russell, I think, would have over the competition would be reduced considerably, but I think Red Bull have got to pull out all the stops here, and they've got to absolutely nail it. They have to be perfect here. They cannot slip up like they did in Q1 in Brazil. But yeah, given that and his recent momentum and the car being on song and Max really being fired up and this being a last gut situation for his title dreams, then I think he's the likeliest winner here. And my likeliest winner of a decision is by imparting the importance of this video right here, which I really think you'll enjoy. So I'll see you over there. I just need a glass of water. I'll be right with you.